Where is everyone today?
Maybe they'll be joining a little late, Dad. Give them one more minute.
Okay, Hare Krishna, everyone. It's 8 o'clock, so I'll just do a short kirtan before Maharaj arrives. Tandavika Prabhu, do you mind being my responder during this period?
Yes, Prabhuji.
Thank you. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namavo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine
Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharine
Prabhupada.
Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pastacha Deshatarine
Namaste Saraswati Devam Gauravani Pracharine Nevishesha Shunyavadi Pashatya Desatarini
Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya
Chaitanya
Prabhu Nityananda
Nityananda
Shri Advaita Gadada Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Time out, Prabhu. So Maharaj
is here.
arrived. So Maharaj, we'll go ahead and turn it over to you. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you. So I will begin by singing the Mangalacharna prayers and leading a short kirtan. And then we will speak about tonight's subject, which is Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, whose disappearance day we recently observed. Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavangsha Shri Rupam Sagradatam Sadvaitam Sabdutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitam Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asatadeshatarine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Asatadeshatarine Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhakta-vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Srotrasita Sri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada Ki Jai. ISKCON founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jayam Vishnupad Paramahansa Pariprajakacharya Srotrasita Sri Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Se Kaho Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shamakunda Radha Kundagiri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Navadvip Dham Ki Jai. Jamuna Mai Ki Jai. Ganga Mai Ki Jai. Tulsi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Samveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande Hari Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna, my dear devotees. Thank you for joining us. The devotees on Zoom, as far as possible, please put on your cameras so we can see your moon-like faces and it will be more personal. So we recently celebrated Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's disappearance day. And His Grace Nitai Gaur Sundar Das thought that it would be an appropriate subject for tonight's meeting to discuss about Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. We are all here by the mercy of His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, and the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There is a line through which the mercy descends upon us, beginning with Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and passing one teacher after the other through parampara, disciplic succession. 5,000 years ago, Krishna came in his original form and instructed in the Bhagavad Gita 9:34 and 1865, Manmana Bhavamad Bhakto, always think of me and become my devotee. 500 years ago, Lord Krishna came again in the devotional form of Sri Krishna Chaitanya to explain and personally show how to be a devotee and always think of Krishna. Lord Chaitanya quoted a verse from the Brihan Naradiya Purana 38:126. Harinama, Harinama, Harinami Vikevalam. Kalonasteva, Nasteva, Nasteva, Gatiranyata. One should chant the holy name, chant the holy name, chant the holy name of Hari, Krishna. There is no other way, no other way, no other way for success in the present age of Kali. He also desired and predicted Prativite Achayata Nagaradigram Sarvatra Prachar Haibe Marna. In as many towns and villages as there are on the surface of the earth, my holy name will be propagated. This desire and prediction was expressed at a time when it was almost impossible to imagine or believe that it could happen. In the 1800s, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur began the effort to spread the holy name of Krishna to countries outside India. He wrote a small book in English called Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, His Life and Precepts, and dispatched copies to libraries around the world. In recent years, Srila Prabhupada's disciples have discovered copies in libraries from Canada, McGill University, to Australia. Bhaktivinoda Thakur yearned for the day when devotees from all over the world would unite in Harinam Sankirtan and wrote, quote, "Very soon the unparalleled path of Harinam Sankirtan will be propagated all over the planet. Oh, for that day when the fortunate English, French, Russian, German, and American people will take up banners, mridungas, and kartals and perform kirtan through their streets and towns. When will that day come? Oh, for the day when the fair-skinned men from their side will raise up the chanting of Jai Sachinandan Ki Jai, and join with the Bengali devotees. When will that day be?" Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was a very powerful spiritual master, an acharya. After the disappearance of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and his associates, many unscrupulous people claiming to be Mahaprabhu's followers introduced concocted philosophies and practices, even illicit activities, to the point that if an educated Bengali heard the word Vaishnav, he would immediately think the worst. In educated circles, Vaishnav had come to mean a sentimental, ignorant person with loose character, who in the guise of religion engaged in all sorts of questionable activities. In this precarious situation, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur came forward and presented the true understanding of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, speaking strongly against the deviant groups that had distorted and perverted Lord Chaitanya's pure teachings and practices. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur held a high position in the British rule of India, the highest an Indian could hold, and then only very rarely. He had important responsibilities in the government and had a large family. But his main interest was Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and the Sankirtan movement. He would sleep little and rise early. He did so much, wrote books, traveled, preached, established centers, and had a tremendous effect, especially on the people of Bengal and Orissa, including the intellectual elite, who were just then coming in touch with modern ideas from the West. He revived the true mission of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, inspiring hosts of people to join him. And he pushed back the deviant groups, which lost much of their influence. Having undertaken such a tremendous task and executed it so successfully, but still being surrounded by many parties with vested interests in covering the true intention of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was at a loss as to who would carry on his mission. He prayed to Krishna to send someone, one of his own associates from the spiritual realm, to continue the work. It is understood that the appearance of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was the answer to Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur's prayers. There are many incidents from Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's early life that indicate that he was that person sent by Krishna. When Srila Bhaktisiddhanta was 5 months old, the Rathayatra cart halted in front of Bhaktivinoda Thakur's home in Puri, and the Thakur directed his wife, Bhagavati Devi, to carry the baby to the chariot. When the infant was placed at the lotus feet of Lord Jagannath, he extended his tiny arms to touch the deity's feet. And Lord Jagannath dropped one of his garlands around him, a blessing and a confirmation of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's divine descent. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati understood his father's mission and worked with him to fulfill it. His father initiated him into the chanting of the holy name, Harinam, the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. But according to etiquette, a father does not give actual diksha to his son. So Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur instructed him to approach Srila Gaura Das Babaji, a great Mahabhagavat, a fully self-realized liberated soul, for diksha. But Srila Gaura Das Babaji was a renowned bhajananandi and was not inclined to accept disciples. He preferred simply to immerse himself in chanting the holy names and hearing scripture. When Sri Siddhanta Saraswati approached him, Srila Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj told him directly that he would not accept him or anyone else as a disciple. Still, Siddhanta Saraswati persisted. So Babaji Maharaj told him, I will ask Mahaprabhu. A few days later, when Siddhanta Saraswati returned and inquired what was Mahaprabhu's order, Babaji Maharaj replied, I forgot to ask. And when Siddhanta Saraswati came for the third time, Babaji Maharaj directly refused him. Quote, Mahaprabhu has not given me permission, end quote. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was devastated. He stood up and quoted a line by Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur addressed to the Guru. Karuna na hoile, kandiya kandiya, prana na rakibo ara. If you are not merciful to me, I will simply weep and weep and will not be able to maintain my life. Finally, when Gaura Das Babaji Maharaj understood how sincere and serious Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was, he accepted him as his disciple and initiated him. 5 years later, in 1905, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati undertook a vow to chant at least 3 lakhs holy names daily, 10 million monthly, until he had chanted 1 billion holy names. For his disciples, Srila Prabhupada fixed the minimum number of 16 rounds per day, which takes most devotees about 2 hours. 4 times 16 is 64 rounds, or 1 lakh names. And 3 times 64 rounds equals 300,000 names, which would take, even at a good rate, some 16 hours a day. In Mayapur, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati constructed a grass hut where he lived very simply and chanted day and night. If rain came and leaked through the thatched roof, he would just hold up an umbrella and continue chanting, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. To complete his vow took more than 9 years, but even then, Sri Siddhanta Saraswati would write, preach, and serve the Dham. One program he attended was especially significant. In Bengal, the caste Brahmins held a stranglehold on people's religious practices. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur had spoken openly against them and their false claim, based on their supposed high birth, that they possessed exclusive rights to be the gurus and perform Brahminical functions. Naturally, when Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and Sri Siddhanta Saraswati challenged them, the Brahmins reacted. An assembly of Smarta Brahmins and Jata Goswamis, caste Goswamis, came together to try to refute the arguments of the pure Vaishnavas and published a tract against them. In response, the Vaishnavas called a 3-day public meeting to discuss the relative positions of Brahmins and Vaishnavas. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was expected to be the main speaker, but severe rheumatism rendered him bedridden. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur himself was not born in a Brahmin family, and obviously neither was his son. Now, the question may be raised that since Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati was a ray of Vishnu, an eternal associate of Krishna sent from the spiritual realm to the material world to preach, Krishna could have arranged for him to take birth in the highest class of Brahmin family, with all the Brahminical qualifications. But Krishna didn't. Why not? Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati explains that the Lord does not arrange for pure devotees to take birth only in high-class families, with all the advantages of good health, education, culture, wealth, strength, and so on, because ordinary people would feel discouraged. They would think, oh, I didn't take birth in a high-class family. I didn't have this or that advantage. What is the hope for me? So great souls take birth in various kinds of family to show us the example that anyone in any condition, even if not born in a Brahmin family, can become Krishna conscious, and to give us hope that we too can be Krishna conscious. So after the publication of the caste Brahmins tract, on the eve of the public meeting to be convened by the Vaishnavas, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur was incapacitated, and he cried out in desperation, is there no one in the Vaishnava world who can reply to these people? And by presenting scriptural evidence and logic, put a stop to their base activities? Sri Siddhanta Saraswati took up the challenge, wrote an essay called, quote, Conclusion Regarding the Comparison of Brahmins and Vaishnavas, end quote, and went to attend the meeting. Many caste Brahmins, although not invited, also went to the meeting. Understanding that Bhaktivinoda Thakur was indisposed and unable to attend, they swaggered about, confident that they would easily triumph over the Vaishnavas. Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was the first speaker. He began by quoting various statements from scripture about the exalted position of Brahmins, and the caste Brahmins in the audience were delighted. He was so brilliant that he could speak better about the high position of Brahmins than the Brahmins themselves. But then he began quoting verses from scripture about the position of Vaishnavas, establishing that Vaishnavas were higher than even Brahmins, and that irrespective of one's birth, if one accepted the Vaishnava principles, he would attain a position more exalted than that of a Brahmin. The Brahmins in the audience were completely overwhelmed. Seeing no way to counter Sri Siddhanta Saraswati's arguments, the Smarta Brahmins and Jat Goswamis snuck away. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur felt assured that his mission was in capable hands, that Sri Siddhanta Saraswati was a worthy successor to carry on his cause. And Sri Siddhanta Saraswati began to preach far and wide. He was fearless and open in his criticism of anything false. And his example and instructions remain relevant to us today. Srila Saraswati Thakur was a prodigious writer and speaker on various topics, including how to present the message of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur. He noted that there are people who think that you should say only positive, not negative things. I experienced that when I was in Madras. I was just preaching as I had heard Srila Prabhupada preach, and people reacted. Even friends, people who were hosting me and supporting me, advised, don't criticize others. Just say what you want about your philosophy and activities. Srila Saraswati Thakur asserted that it was imperative not only to elucidate the truth, but also to criticize anything false. Because in Kali Yuga, there is so much false propaganda that we have to be very clear. There cannot be any ambiguity in our message. He said, quote, "The positive method by itself is not the most effective method of propaganda in a controversial age like the present. The negative method, which seeks to differentiate the truth from non-truth in all its forms, is even better calculated to convey the directly inconceivable significance of the absolute. It is a necessity which cannot be conscientiously avoided by the dedicated preacher of the truth if he wants to be a loyal servant of Godhead. The method is sure to create an atmosphere of controversy in which it is quite easy to lose one's balance of judgment. But the ways of the deluding energy are so intricate that unless their mischievous nature is fully exposed, it is not possible for the soul in the conditioned state to avoid the snares by the enchantress, Maya, for encompassing the ruin of her only two willing victims. It is a duty which shall be sacred to all who have been enabled to attain even a distant glimpse of the absolute. Our Srila Prabhupada also demonstrated this approach. He had a friend named Dr. Patel who would accompany him on his morning walks on Juhu Beach. Dr. Patel was quite literate. He knew Sanskrit, and he was quite sharp. So one morning, Dr. Patel started praising a revered, popular religious figure of India. And Srila Prabhupada, in turn, began to criticize the figure. Dr. Patel protested, "You cannot criticize like this." But Srila Prabhupada replied, "I am not saying. Krishna is saying. Namam duskritino mudha prapadyante naradama maya parita jnana asaram bhavamashita." If you are not surrendered to Krishna, you are a miscreant in one of these categories: fool, rascal, demon. Dr. Patel became agitated and raised his voice. And Srila Prabhupada raised his. The whole situation became both tense and intense. Finally, Dr. Patel's friends dragged him away. It was like in a boxing ring when the bell rings to signal the end of the round, and the two opponents keep going at each other, and the referee has to tear them apart. For the first time, Dr. Patel stopped coming for the morning walks. And Srila Prabhupada also said, "Now no more discussion. We will only read Krishna book." But after a couple of days, Dr. Patel was walking in one direction on the beach and Prabhupada was walking in the other. And as Dr. Patel described it, something in his heart just drew him to Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. He offered obeisance and said, "Prabhupada, I'm sorry, but we are trained to respect all the accredited saints of India." And Srila Prabhupada replied, "Yes. And our business is to point out who is not a saint." He had learned from his Guru Maharaj, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, that we not only tell who is a saint, we also explain who is not a saint. And that is the mercy of the Vaishnava. So people know clearly what is what. Otherwise, they can be misled and as a result, suffer. Srila Saraswati Thakur was a tremendously powerful and successful preacher who fearlessly spoke the truth. And his pure preaching inspired hundreds of thousands of people to follow. But he also had enemies. He was the enemy of falsehood, and people who were thriving on falsehood sometimes became his enemies. Once, when his party were performing Navadvip Parikrama, the caste Brahmins hired gundas, thugs, who let loose with a volley of stones and boulders on the party, aiming to take Srila Saraswati Thakur's life. There were attempts on other occasions as well. But one of his disciples cleverly exchanged his white dress for Saraswati Thakur's saffron robes. So Saraswati Thakur emerged disguised and escaped. But it was a terrible scene. It looked like a massacre with the streets of Navadvip stained with the blood of the Vaishnavas. Some devotees suffered gashes and fractures, but by Krishna's grace, none were killed. It was a dark moment, but when it came to light that the attack had been perpetrated by the caste Goswamis, the public sided with Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and the Gaudiya Math. And the caste Goswami's opposition to him lost whatever credibility it had. As news of the event spread, those in learned circles protested in newspapers and magazines. The chief police inspector in Navadvip was fired, and the parikrama continued under full police protection. Later, when urged to press charges against the culprits, Srila Saraswati Thakur declined, saying that the Gundas had done a yeoman's service. Otherwise, how could the Gaudiya Math have been featured on the front pages of all the newspapers? Srila Saraswati Thakur was the enemy of falsehood, but he was the well-wisher of everyone, even of the people who were inimical to him. He used all means to broadcast the message of Krishna, employing the latest technologies. He directed the construction of dioramas and other exhibits and staged huge theistic exhibitions. In January of 1935, the governor of Bengal, Sir John Anderson, visited Mayapur. This was a major event because the Britishers were the rulers, and Srila Saraswati Thakur was one of their subjects, one of their vassals. But the governor, accompanied by many other dignitaries, came all the way to Mayapur to meet Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati and see his work. Despite Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's tremendous purity and potency and success as a preacher, within his own institution, there were disconcerting signs that some of his leading disciples were becoming materially infected. With so much opulence, facility, fame, and respect, some of them had become distracted. Instead of realizing that all the facility was meant for the service of the Lord, to bring people to the Lord's unalloyed service, they were enjoying the facilities and adulation. In an effort to reform his followers, Srila Saraswati Thakur spoke strongly, and he restricted the use of certain facilities, only for service, only for preaching, to curb the devotees' materialistic tendencies. Of course, he also had many sincere disciples who did not become materially affected. At the same time, Srila Saraswati Thakur continued his propaganda activities, writing, publishing, traveling, and preaching, and was successful wherever he went. Still, he was disturbed that some of his disciples had become so mundane. When he reached the age of 62, Srila Saraswati Thakur's health declined, and he made statements indicating that he would soon be leaving. In late October 1936, he traveled to Puri, a holy place that was warmer than Calcutta. But in December, though he was in a weakened condition, he wanted to return to Calcutta, and the disciples arranged for his travel by train. In Calcutta, Srila Saraswati Thakur's disciples called in some of the city's most renowned physicians. When one advised him, you have to rest more, you can't speak so much, Saraswati Thakur proceeded to preach for hours about the purpose of human life, that the physical body was temporary, and that the soul's absolute necessity was to serve the Lord. He felt that if he could not speak about Krishna, what would be the use of living? On December 23rd, a week before he passed away, he instructed the devotees gathered at his bedside. Quote, I have upset many persons' minds. Many might have considered me their enemy, because I was obliged to speak the trained truth of service and devotion towards the absolute Godhead. I have given them all those troubles only so that they might turn their face toward the personality of Godhead, without any desire for gain and with unalloyed devotion. Surely someday they will be able to understand that. I advise all to preach the teachings of Rupa Raghunath, two of the six Goswamis, direct disciples of Lord Chaitanya. With all energy and resources, our ultimate goal shall be to become the dust of the lotus feet of Shri Rupa and Raghunath Goswamis. You should all work conjointly under the guidance of your spiritual master with a view to serve the absolute knowledge, the personality of Godhead. You should live somehow or other without any quarrel in this mortal world, only for the service of Godhead. Do not, please, give up the service of Godhead. In spite of all dangers, all criticism, and all discomforts. Do not be disappointed, for most people in the world do not serve the personality of Godhead. Do not give up your own service, which is your everything and all. Neither reject the process of chanting and hearing of the transcendental holy name of Godhead. You should always chant the transcendental name of Godhead with patience and forbearance like a tree and humbleness like a straw. There are many amongst you who are well qualified and able workers. We have no other desire whatsoever. After midnight on December 31st, Srila Saraswati Thakur left this world. His disciples took his body to Mayapur and established his samadhi there. News of his departure was broadcast on All India Radio, and an official day of mourning was observed in Bengal. The Corporation of Calcutta held a special meeting in tribute to his memory and issued a resolution expressing its members' deep sorrow. The mayor addressed the assembly, quote, I rise to condole the passing away of His Divine Grace Paramahansa Srimad Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Maharaj, the President Acharya of the Gaudiya Math of Calcutta, and the great leader of the Gaudiya movement throughout the world. This melancholy event happened on the first day of this new year. Born in 1874, he dedicated his whole life to religious pursuits and dissemination of the cultural wealth of this great and ancient land of ours. An intellectual giant, He elucidated the admiration of all for his unique scholarship, high and varied attainments, original thinking, and wonderful exposition of many difficult branches of knowledge. With invaluable contributions, he enriched many journals. He was the author of some devotional literature of repute. He was one of the most powerful and brightest exponents of the cult of Vaishnavism. His utterances and writings displaying a deep study of comparative philosophy and theology. Catholicity of his views, soundness of his teachings, and above all, his dynamic personality and the irresistible force of the pure and simple life had attracted thousands of followers of his message of love and service to the Absolute as propagated by Sri Krishna Chaitanya. He was the founder and guiding spirit of the Sri Chaitanya Math at Sri Mayapur, Nadia, and the Gaudiya Math of Calcutta. The Gaudiya movement, to which his contribution is no small one, has received a setback at the passing away of such a great soul. His departure has created a void in the spiritual horizon of India, which is difficult to be filled up. The void was a big one. Srila Saraswati Thakur was a monumental personality, and there was no one else like him. Practically, there had never been anyone like him before, and nobody could imagine anyone like him coming afterwards. But then, in 1965, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's humble servant, a Grihastha disciple named Abhay Charanaravinda Das, who after his Guru Maharaj's disappearance had been awarded sannyas and the name A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami by Sripad Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj, boarded a steamer from Calcutta, traveled to New York, and began the Krishna Consciousness Movement, the International Society for Krishna Consciousness in the West. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada as he became known, embodied the spirit and teachings and potency of his Guru Maharaj and fulfilled the desire and prediction of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, and Srila Saraswati Thakur, that the holy names of Sri Krishna Chaitanya, be propagated in every town and village of the world. Srila Prabhupada made adjustments because he had his own audience and particular circumstances. Like his Guru Maharaj, he was ready to use anything and everything in the service of the mission. He engaged modern technology, tape recorders, dictaphones, electric typewriters, printing presses, computers, airplanes, in the service of the Lord. He sent disciples to Bengal to learn the traditional art of dowel making, and also used modern technology to create diorama exhibits illustrating the principles of Krishna consciousness and the pastimes of the Lord. Adopting Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati's idea of theistic exhibitions, he created the FATE, F-A-T-E, First American Theistic Exhibition Museum in Los Angeles. And so the line of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur is continuing by his divine grace. Of course, the holy name is the essence of everything. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati advised, Krishna and Krishna Nam are not two entities. Krishna is his holy name, and the holy name is Krishna. Krishna Nam is the son of Nanda, Shyam Sundar. Our only devotional service and duty is Sri Krishna Nam Sankirtan. This understanding is auspicious. And to one disciple, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta wrote, I am overjoyed to hear that your enthusiasm for chanting is increasing. As our contaminations are removed by chanting, the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes will be revealed to us in the holy name. There is no point in making a separate effort to artificially remember the name's Lord, the Lord's form, qualities, and pastimes. The Lord and his name are one and the same. This will be understood clearly when the coverings in your heart are removed. By chanting without offenses, you will personally realize that all perfections come from the holy name. Through chanting, the distinction that exists between the self and the gross and subtle bodies is gradually effaced, and one realizes one's own spiritual form. Once aware of the spiritual body, as one continues to chant, one sees the transcendental nature of the Lord's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual form of the living entity and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's form. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual qualities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's qualities. Only the holy name reveals the spiritual activities of the living being and then causes him to be attracted to Krishna's pastimes. By service to the holy name, this is very important, by service to the holy name, we do not mean only the chanting of the holy name. It also includes the other duties of the chanter. If we serve the holy name with the body, mind, and soul, then the direction of that service spontaneously manifests like the sun in the clear sky of the chanter's heart. What is the nature of the holy name? Eventually, all these understandings will spontaneously appear in the heart of one who chants the holy name. The true nature of Harinam is revealed by listening to, reading, and studying the scriptures. It is unnecessary to write anything further on this subject. All these things will be revealed to you through chanting. So let us all, as Srila Prabhupada said, chant and be happy. Hare Krishna. So, my dear devotees, thank you for joining us on this auspicious occasion for this auspicious topic. And now, if any of you have any questions or comments, you can raise your hands, your physical hand or your virtual hand. I see that Siddhi Lalasa has her hand raised.
Hare Krishna Maharaj. I had a question. I have a question about living in Vrindavan and Mayapur. See that Srila Bhakti Siddhanta, he left Mayapur and he came to Calcutta, and that's where he left the body. And Srila Prabhupada was determined to go to Vrindavan. He was in Bombay, Juhu. And he was determined to go to Vrindavan. So what is the instruction for us?
Well, there's spiritual variegatedness. It's true. Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur left his body in Calcutta. And Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur also left his body in Calcutta. But Srila Prabhupada chose to leave his body in Vrindavan. And other recent acharyas, Gaurkishore Das Babaji Maharaj, he left his body in Mayapur. And Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj, he also left his body in Mayapur. So what is the instruction for you? The instruction for you is to follow your heart. And, pray to the Lord in the heart, pray to the Guru in the heart to guide you. But I would leave it at that. I think, yeah. But again, it is auspicious to leave one's body in the Dham, in Vrindavan or Mayapur. And Srila Prabhupada set the example and he left his body in Vrindavan. So, but yeah. I mean, Mother Kirti was in Vrindavan and, eventually she came to Dallas and she left her body in Dallas, which had a profound effect on the Dallas community of devotees. It was a very powerful preaching action. So, yeah, there are many factors. You can weigh your different options and pray for mercy and make your selection.
Do we select, or is it Krishna who arranged for us? We may wish, but we have the choice.
That's true too. Man proposes and God disposes. Yeah, it's not entirely up to us. That's true. But since you were asking as if you had a choice, so I replied as if you had the choice. And, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta chose to depart in Calcutta. Srila Prabhupada chose to depart in Vrindavan. Sometimes you don't have a choice.
Yes, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. Thank you for such an inspiring class today. I learned so much about Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati's courage in preaching Mahaprabhu's teachings and how much risk he took upon his own life. And it was really starkly clear to me how he didn't hesitate to criticize the non-devotees, especially who are posing as religious leaders. And for me, that was like pretty sharp. You know, I've also heard from acharyas that, when somebody asked Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Maharaj, is it all right to criticize the non-devotees? And he said, yes, it's all right to do so. But first find out who is the first non-devotee. And that's my own self. So for me, that was an instruction that, look at your own heart first before criticizing others. So I don't know how to draw the balance between, of course, we don't criticize, the hate. We don't hate the sinners. We hate the sin. Criticize, the non-devotion part of people, but it's so difficult to be strong and sharp. As Dr. Patel was saying, we are trained to respect saintly people. So how do you, I mean, we do a little bit of preaching here and there, whatever we can, but I just never take the path of criticizing anybody. I can't do it. So what do you suggest, Maharaj, for a neophyte like me?
Well, we don't criticize for the sake of criticizing. We criticize for the sake of helping new people or neophytes not to be misled by false gurus or false teachings. So if we criticize for that reason, then there's no harm. I was in Madras and I was preaching as I heard Srila Prabhupada preach. And, some people reacted. They didn't like my criticizing. And they said, don't criticize others, just, state positively what you want about your own philosophy and activities, but don't criticize others. So I had an appointment with an industrialist. And, I was getting it from many people, not to criticize. So I thought maybe Krishna's trying to tell me something. So I resolved that I wouldn't criticize. So I went to meet the industrialist. He had a large compound with his residence and his office and his factory. So I was very determined, just state positively what I want about our philosophy and activities. I won't say anything negative or criticize anyone. So I made my presentation. I showed him the books, and I asked him to become a life member. And he said, well, what about Shankaracharya? I mean, you've spoken so many things about so many acharyas, but you haven't said anything about Shankaracharya. So I said, yes, Shankaracharya is also one of the great acharyas of India. But he kept probing, well, what about him? So finally, I couldn't avoid the topic. And I came out with a whole explanation that he was actually an incarnation of Lord Shiva who was meant to bewilder people with his atheistic philosophy, which was a type of veiled Buddhism, and I took out the teachings of Lord Chaitanya book, and I read the whole section. And I figured, well, that's that. I put the form back in my briefcase, packed up, and I was ready to leave. So as I was leaving, the man said, Swamiji, I want you to come into my home and see my temple room. And I thought, oh no, there's going to be a Shiva Linga. And if I don't offer obeisances, he's going to be offended. So I looked him in the eye like, do I really have to? And he looked me in the eye like, yes, you do. So I went into his home, and his temple room was quite big, as home temples are. And it was a white marble, white marble floor and white marble
Altar.
platform. And on the platform were big deities of Radha and Krishna. And I was so happy to see them, because I didn't, almost all the Vaishnava temples in Madras were Vishnu. And there was one Parthasarathi, famous Parthasarathi Mandir in Madras. So that was Krishna alone, but no Radha and Krishna. So I looked at him like, what is this? And he said, Swamiji, me and my family for generations have all been devotees of Radha and Krishna. And I was just testing you, and you didn't compromise. So I'm very pleased with you, and I will be happy to become your life member. So well, maybe I wasn't doing wrong. I mean, that ended well, but I wasn't completely sure. But that ended well. And then when I got back to the place where I was staying in Madras, there was a letter from Srila Prabhupada that was so clear. And in the letter, Srila Prabhupada wrote, well, maybe I almost remember it verbatim, but I think it's better I actually read it, because it's so beautiful. Yes, Srila Prabhupada wrote me. The fact is that I am the only one in India who is openly criticizing not only demigod worship and impersonalism, but everything that falls short of complete surrender to Krishna. My Guru Maharaj never compromised in his preaching, nor will I, nor should any of my students. We are firmly convinced that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and all others are his part and parcel servants. This we must declare boldly to the whole world, that they should not foolishly dream of world peace unless they are prepared to surrender fully to Krishna as the Supreme Lord. So that was the answer.
Hari Bol. Thank you, Maharaj.
I did see another hand up.
It was Thanu Prabhu Maharaj. I don't know where he went.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my obeisance. It's such a wonderful class, Maharaj. So much information about Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj. But please, I do not know how to put this question, Maharaj, by ignore. Please ignore. Sorry. The question is, okay, when we refer Prabhupada, we say we are referring him as a Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Srimadi Bhakti Vedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. At the same time, when we're referring to that his Guru Maharaj, we Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Guru Maharaj. Could you please light on that? Okay, the difference between those two, Maharaj?
Yes, Prabhupada is a term of highest respect for a spiritual personality. And Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur was called Prabhupada. And our Srila Prabhupada was also called Prabhupada. And some of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta's disciples thought it was improper for our Srila Prabhupada to accept the title Srila Prabhupada. And once, when Srila Prabhupada was being challenged about that, he very humbly said, my disciples asked me, and in a moment of weakness, I gave them permission. But certainly, he is a fit successor to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur Prabhupada. And, but yes, sometimes, depending on the context, we say our Srila Prabhupada, meaning our Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, to make it clear that we're not referring to Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Prabhupada. But certainly they were both worthy of that exalted title. Rupa Goswami also is called Prabhupada.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Maharaj, I have just for first question about, is not Maharaj wherever personality is pure devotee, ray of Vishnu, wherever they are, they create Vrindavan there themselves. Doesn't matter whether they're in Calcutta or
Yes.
wherever. So, like Srila Prabhupada, wherever he was, he made Vrindavan everywhere. Every town and village he made Vrindavan. So then then our consciousness will, that as you were describing, that will be, choice will be ours.
That's true. That's true.
Hare Krishna Babuji, in the same manner, he's expecting us to create the same thing too. In his letter of instruction, he says every devotees, when they are reading about that, reading his book, we are creating Vrindavan everywhere. That's what Prabhupada mentioned on his letter of instruction.
Beautiful. Malati Dasi.
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Shri Prabhupada. All glories to your divine self. Guru Maharaj, hearing this class of being very open in your preaching, so I see we as devotees and in our preaching we adjust a lot. In our homes, I have seen, I myself have kept demigods in my temple to just keep harmony at my place because I don't want to create any problems. I do fold my hands and pray to Lord Shiva that please forgive me. I know your Ishtadev is Lord Krishna, but then I have to do few things which would create that I have to show that you are the Lord. So where do we stand, Guru Maharaj, or we have to put a point very strongly, or we adjust and remain in our positions, in our hearts we understand that Lord Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So how do we react to Guru Maharaj?
You're saying that your husband likes to worship demigods?
Yes, Guru Maharaj. I have three steps. So at the top I have kept my Nitai Gaur Sundar, and the second are my Tulsi Maharani and Gurus, and the third is all demigods. It's not Lord Shiva, it's like the whole team of demigods are there. So now I have to.
Well, they're also devotees. The demigods are also devotees. And of course, ordinarily for our own altars, we wouldn't want to have demigods. But, for the sake of peace at home with your husband, I think you definitely have to keep the demigods there on the lower level. That's okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Okay, thank you very much. And one more question, I was just thinking about that. Earlier, Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur used to chant for 16 hours in a day, and it seems that there was no time for rest and other things. He was like so involved. Now there is like we say that we have to take care of our health, and we cannot do much in this Kali Yuga. So what like we are doing adjustment, is it okay, Guru Maharaj, that to put our so much of time in eating, sleeping, and not doing much as required?
Well, you do need to take care of your health, to keep the body and soul together, keep the body fit for serving Krishna. I mean, I don't know that it took him 16 hours. That was my calculation. But definitely he spent a lot of time chanting, and he probably didn't spend much time eating or sleeping. But yeah, I think we should follow, in general, Srila Prabhupada's example. It's a reasonable example. And yeah, we should take care of our health. I mean, Srila Prabhupada wrote me a letter telling me to take care of my health. I'll read it to you because it's a good one. He wrote, if you're feeling tired, you may take rest. Your body is very valuable. It is dedicated to Krishna. So you must take care of the body very carefully. The best medicine is to rest and chant the Hare Krishna mantra along with the doctor's prescription. The Hare Krishna mantra is Bhavosati, the panacea for all material disease. He wrote that to me on August 12, 1971. I think that's good advice for everyone.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Guru Maharaj.
Bola Prabhu,
Hare Krishna Guru Maharaj.
Hare Krishna.
Always wonderful to see you. You know, I was thinking back today in particular, almost exactly 5 hours ago, 2 years and 2019, we were walking around Dallas. I got the opportunity to on my birthday. So I kind of wish that you were here now so we could walk around that park. I can walk around and chant with you again, but one day that's going to happen again, hopefully soon.
Yeah.
I just wanted to say that I've been heavily thinking about you a lot, especially when I chant. And I really appreciate you chastising me, even when you're not here, but I always kind of hear you like directing me. So that's wonderful. I really appreciate that.
Yes.
I was just really reaching out to say thank you again for accepting this food as a disciple and helping me to get back home to join you and, Srila Prabhupada continuously on that mission, even in the spiritual world. I just ask for your blessings today on my birthday to continue to increase my devotion, right? Because I feel like without your blessings, I can't do it anyway. So I really ask just for you to bless me today. That's my birthday gift, since you're not physically here, but you're always with me. Haribo.
Yeah. Happy birthday. I wish you all the best. I will pray for you. And I'm sure that all these, more than 50, 60 devotees on Zoom, they'll also bless you on your birthday, that you can advance more and more in Krishna consciousness.
Jai.
Hare
Virat Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Krishna Prabhupada ki jai.
Thank you, Maharaj. I think there's no other questions, so we will let you go.
Okay.
So we'll see you next month, Maharaj.
That's our,
New Year.
yeah, yeah. That's our schedule. That's our
And that's your blessing for us for every day and every year and every minute. Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj, for being so kind.
Thank you for organizing these nice programs. So if we're going to end now, I suggest we conclude with Vaishnava Pranam. Let us offer our respectful obeisances unto all the Vaishnava devotees of the Lord, who are just like desired trees who can fulfill the desires of everyone and are full of compassion for the fallen conditioned souls. Vanchakalpa Trubhyascha
Yacha Kripa Sindhu
Gitanam Bhavani
Bhavanibhyo Vaishnavibhyo Namo
Anantakoti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai.
The Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai.
Virat Swami Maharaj ki jai.
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 Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Haribo.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hare Krishna Maharaj.
Thank you.